on locations throughout the world.
Standing passengers, please do not lean against the doors.
Picture goers, we bring to you new films of interest.
Chicago in State is next. Doors open on the left.
The miracle of the motion picture.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.
Chicago's a nice town if you're looking for pizza.
Welcome to 4 Stars, a Chicago film podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies set in Chicago.
Each episode will be discussing a different movie that's set in and or was filmed in the Chicago area, its cultural, historic relationship to the Chicago, and whether it's a good representation of the city.
We want to figure out what makes Chicago movies different from movies about other cities, and to answer the question of what a Chicago movie even is.
I'm one of your hosts, Jeremy Martyr. I am a manager of the Music Box Theater.
And I am Paco Alvarez, a journalist based in Chicago, also set here.
And I'm realizing that I did say the Chicago area, filmed in the Chicago, not the Chicago area.
Just the Chicago.
The Chicago. Like it's La Habana or something.
Yeah. I think it'd be kind
The
of
Hague.
Yeah. I think we should start referring to the Ukraine. Yeah, we should start referring to Chicago as the Chicago.
Yeah.
And on today's episode, we are discussing High Fidelity from the year 2000, directed by Stephen Frears, starring John Cusack, Jack Black, and a whole other cast of characters.
Yeah.
Cast of actors, in fact.
Yeah.
Not characters.
Later in the episode, we will be joined by film critic and writer Keith Phipps to talk about the film.
But before we start talking about the movie, let's talk a bit about what was going on in Chicago at the time.
Yeah, tell us, Paco, what was going on in Chicago?
So this movie was released on, or the U.S. release, the wide release was March 31st, 2000. This was actually like a month and a half before I moved here from Argentina. And so what was going on in the world was there was the beginning of the dot-com bubble, or the beginning of the dot-com bubble burst. So the end of the dot-com bubble, and the U.S. was entering, a little recession. We're not familiar with those anymore because we stopped having those.
Yeah, that was the last recession.
Yes, that was the last one. And that's what they called it, the last recession. And then, but what was going on in Chicago at the time, in the Tribune, I saw an interesting headline that was titled, Jailed Alderman Charges Bias in Jury Selection. So first of all, I saw Jailed Alderman. I gotta find out who this is. I gotta find out who this is. And so the article is about former Alderman Virgil Jones of the 15th Ward. And he had been convicted in this FBI operation called Operation Silver Shovel, which I think I've named before. I think I've brought up before. It was this giant FBI sting operation across Chicago to kind of root out corruption. And he had been convicted. And in one of his attempts to appeal the conviction, his lawyer argued that two dismissed jurors had been dismissed because of their race. They were both African American. And so they were charging that because they were dismissed based on their race, the trial wasn't fair.
The whole trial.
Yeah, it wasn't fair.
Trial.
Because the jury is the one who convicted him. One of the jurors was sleeping during the jury, which is why she was dismissed.
That's an amazing way to get out, by the way, if anyone wants to swing that.
Yeah, just fall asleep. And the other juror
was the rural juror.
Yeah, the other juror was the rural juror. For the other one, she kept looking over at the defense. And I guess the prosecution argued that she was biased towards the defense. I don't know if I was on jury. I would probably also look at the defense table all the time because it's that guy's being on trial right now.
Right.
So I do think that was kind of sketchy. But anyway, so Virgil Jones, he was convicted of pocketing 2 payoffs totaling $7,000 in 1992 and 1993. So Operation Silver Shovel was this huge FBI operation in the mid-90s. The reason why I thought this article was interesting is because I think this was kind of the tail end of the consequences of that operation, but a lot of people went to jail because of this operation. And it was an important corruption probe into what corruption looked like in the 90s in Chicago. And what was the most interesting thing about it was that a lot of it rested on this guy, John Christopher, who was like a former like career criminal, super mobbed up, super corrupt guy who like was just like operated a bunch of like illegal dumping operations.
Right. I'm seeing like rock crushing. And
yeah. And he just like had been to prison before. He had like just done just so much corruption, just like anything you can think of, he did it. And then to like I think he was facing jail and fines, and to get out of that, he started
snitching.
Yeah, he started working for the FBI. And I sort of feel like Virgil Jones was definitely guilty of this specific thing, which was that Christopher paid him off to operate a rock crushing operation in the 15th Ward.
Yeah.
And the way that he paid him off was by handing him $4,000 and then $3,000 on a separate occasion in small bills in a brown paper bag at an IHOP.
As one does.
Yeah.
That's what an IHOP is for.
It's for payoffs. So Virgil Jones definitely did that.
Yeah.
But also John Christopher was an FBI mole at that time. So it seems kind of, I haven't looked at I'm going to obviously, as it comes up, I'll look into more Operation Silver Shovel convictions because I just love that name, Operation Silver Shovel.
Silver Shovel.
It seems kind of unfair that Virgil Jones went to prison because the FBI paid him off.
Well, they do that all the time. That's sort of part of their...
But they didn't have like other examples of him. Like there might have been other examples of him like taking payoffs, but it just seems kind of unfair that they like got him on the thing that they did. Like they did the crime.
But again, like that is what if you look at the history of what the FBI has done, that is what they do. They suspect something, but they don't have any evidence, so they create it, they recreate it, and that sometimes is the first time that thing has happened. It is littered throughout their history. I think one of my favorite quotes in here is that Jones said he wanted it in small bills to pay homeless people who worked his office. Of course, you can't pay homeless people with $100 bills, which is just a great quote.
Yes, it's really funny. He claimed that it was not a payoff. It was actually it was $7,000 in small bills towards his campaign, and that actually he did write it down as a campaign contribution in a ledger, but that it was stolen in a robbery that he had never actually reported. And there's a funny quote by
a certain assistant U.S. attorney.
Yes, you might know her name, Lori Lightfoot. And about the missing ledger, she said, "It's pathetic. It's like the cat ate my homework."
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's really funny. So I thought that's why I thought this was interesting. It's got another corrupt politician.
Yeah.
We've talked about a few of those. Hopefully, we'll keep stacking them up. Maybe one day we can make a top 5 corrupt politicians that we talked about on this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's also an interesting look at this giant corruption probe that was going on in the city at this time.
Right.
Another fun fact is that Virgil Jones was previously a cop, and his nickname was Lock 'em Up Jones.
Lock 'em up Jones. And also there was another Virgil Jones who was arrested on similar charges, who he has accused that guy of impersonating him, and he said it damaged his reputation.
Yes. It's pretty. He seems like a fun guy. I think I think he did try to run for alderman again, and they were like, "You were convicted, so you can't." But I think he's still out there. Maybe we can get him on the pod.
Yeah. What can he cover?
Yeah.
Wanted.
The Fugitive.
That's funny.
He's yeah. But yeah, so that's what was going on in Chicago on March 31st, 2000. Do you want to give a quick little plot summary of High Fidelity?
Absolutely. The movie we're covering today is High Fidelity. It's directed by Stephen Frears. It was written by D.V. DeVincentis, Steve Pink, John Cusack, and Scott Rosenberg. It's based on a book by Nick Hornby. High Fidelity is about a record store owner who's recently had his heart broken. He recounts his many loves in the top 5 biggest heartbreaks. And the movie sort of hops between this and him sort of navigating his current breakup, which, most of it revolves around his record store, his many top 5s, and going back and meeting all of his exes and getting new perspective before returning and ending up with his ex.
Yes. And it features a star performance by Jack Black. I think it wasn't his first role, but it was definitely, I think,
It's what put him on the map.
yeah. I'll break him out.
Do you know what movie I knew him from
Before
High Fidelity was what's the Gene Hackman Will Smith one? The Tony Scott movie.
Oh, he's in Enemy of the State.
So good.
He's really good in Enemy of the State. Pretty much every movie before he got big, he was like,
yeah, it's
so
like this
good
guy's
in
on fire.
And then he never did anything after School of Rock. We
No.
never heard from him again. I wonder what he's up to.
There's very little way to know. So today on the podcast, we have our guest, Keith Phipps. Keith is a Chicago-based writer focusing on film. His primary outlet is The Reveal, a newsletter he co-writes with his longtime collaborator, Scott Tobias. Keith also contributes to Vulture, The Ringer, TV Guide, and other outlets, and previously served as an editor to the AV Club and The Dissolve. He is also co-host of The Next Picture Show.
And he wrote a book called Age of Cage, a book about Nicolas Cage movies.
Let's talk to Keith.
Welcome, Keith Phipps, to our podcast today to talk about High Fidelity. And yeah, I guess, Keith, do you want to just start out by telling us about your connection to Chicago and sort of like what you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been writing about film and other aspects of pop culture since longer than since the mid '90s, basically. And I started out writing for the AV Club, which was based in Madison, Wisconsin. And I moved to Chicago in the year 2001. I was just continuing to work at the AV Club. I came down here with the woman I would marry, who got into grad school at Northwestern. So I've been here ever since. And I've been here since 2001, and I still don't feel comfortable calling myself a Chicagoan. Not because I don't love the city, but it's because it's like people have been there their whole lives. Those are Chicagoans. My kid is going to be a Chicagoan. I don't know if I can still call myself a Chicagoan yet. Maybe this is the place to ask. Am I allowed to call myself a Chicagoan at this point?
That's a really good question. We actually had this conversation with another one of our guests, and this has just been like a conversation I've been having with my coworkers, and we sort of settled, I think, on like, if you consider yourself a Chicagoan and if you've lived more than like a fourth of your life here, there was a joke that my coworker was saying that like, if you live half your life here, you consider yourself a Chicagoan, and that next year was that they were celebrating their induction to being a Chicagoan. But I think it resides within yourself. If you call this place home, I think you're a Chicagoan.
I think at this point it's safe to say I call it home. I've lived here longer than any place else. So yeah, sure. But you know what though? Ask me where most of the suburbs are, or what highway you take to get there. I have no idea. I guess Chicago in the purest sense, where I know the city, but nothing outlying it.
No, you're okay. There's many Chicagoans in my life who do not know those things as well.
Okay.
We all interact with the city in different ways. I wanted to ask, what your connection to this movie that we're covering today, High Fidelity, was. When did you first see it, and what was your relationship to it early on?
So, I have an interesting relationship with this film, and that I saw it in Madison, Wisconsin, when I was kind of contemplating the move down here. And I was, I'd spent a lot of time in Chicago. The AV Club was part of the Onion for years as part of the print edition. And the Onion had opened a branch down here in 98, 99. I spent a lot of time here. I really, I had friends here. I really liked the city a lot. And I felt like this was kind of the Chicago that was promised to me, the one in this film, watching this film, it's like, oh, I can, I knew it was a movie and obviously fictionalized, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's kind of why I would want to move to Chicago is the bookstores and the record stores and the movie theaters and so on and so forth. And I actually did a piece on this for Chicago Magazine a few years ago on the film's 20th anniversary, and like a little bit about how this was the Chicago I moved to, and now it's kind of a time capsule of Chicago that's not there in quite the same way anymore.
Yeah, totally. So I guess since you brought up that article, that was one of the reasons why we initially thought of you to talk about this movie with, is because of that article and sort of the claim you make that the Chicago it imagined is gone. And I guess, yeah, just what are some of the sorts of major changes you've witnessed in your time in Chicago?
For me, it's the changes that have happened everywhere. And in some ways, I think, things that are cool kind of disappear as you get older and you can't see them quite as well. But like, I spent so much of my life kind of like, going to record stores and bookstores and video stores, and those have certainly thinned out. I mean, a lot of the places the time when like every neighborhood had a record store isn't there anymore. There's some really cool places, but record store culture has changed a lot since this film came out as well. Just there, that's the main thing for me, is like sort of just the transformations that have happened in every city, the disappearance of these places that sell physical media for one thing, is, I've seen it happen in Chicago as well.
Yeah. Do you think that like you can see and track like that sort of decline and maybe even a comeback? Like, do you see like a resurgence in a desire for this sort of thing, this sort of space, physical media, etc.?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I used to live in Andersonville, and for years we didn't have a record store. And then we got a cool record store right before, a couple years before I moved to a different neighborhood, which is Rattleback. And definitely it's like, that's the same. It's kind of the same vibe. The thing that throws me is that where I used to go and look for, $8 CDs, it's now like $40 records.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the kind of like, people who are there to acquire a lot of music because they love it and they're curious about it. That vibe has shifted, I guess, because, it's all on streaming now. And that's, and I certainly not going to say that's not in many ways a wonderful thing. But it is definitely a different kind of culture than the one depicted in this film.
Absolutely. I do think like, there's a big difference in going to a store. And I love all the new record stores that have been popping up or new video stores, but there's a very different, feeling as opposed to like a place where you're like falling over books and records and things that have not been organized. There's like a feeling of discovery as opposed to like the very cataloged and organized, so almost sanitized feeling of some of these new places. And this movie, I think, captures the type of people who run these spaces so well, not being one archetype, but the different people who run the stores. Is that accurate to your experience as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think with Rob in this film, I can't really imagine him doing anything else, right? I mean, this is a guy who's born to run a record store, and he's, in his own way, good at it as well. And that's certainly my experience with record store clerks, and by extension video store clerks, which I was one, and bookstore clerks, that these are people who took these jobs mostly because they want to be around the stuff they love, right? And that's, I think this film captures that pretty well. I mean, these people don't really breathe the oxygen all that well in different environments.
No, they fight with each other. They're imperfect. Where were you a film store clerk?
Four Star Video Heaven in Madison,
Hey.
Wisconsin. Yeah, I don't know if you know the story. It's still in existence, which is so cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's now like run as a collective.
For a year, I lived in Madison right after college before moving back to Chicago. But I don't think I actually visited Four Star. I just remember seeing it in the background sometimes when I was walking.
It's moved to. It used to be really prominently located, but it's. I mean, much as at least if High Fidelity is at least partially responsible for me moving to Chicago, Four Star Video Heaven was partially responsible for me going to Wisconsin after college for grad school. That I would end up working there. I went to grad school for a year, and it was fine. Whatever. I kind of wanted to get on with my life after a certain point. And then as you do after you get a master's degree in English, you go to work at a video store, which is what I did for about a year and a half before getting hired by the AV Club.
Yeah. That sort of, can you talk a little bit about the sort of inception of that AV Club, that sort of offshoot of the Onion? a thing that I know is a Madison, Wisconsin thing, but very much so a part of my childhood is picking up an onion on the way to the Brown line. But can you talk a little bit about your experience with the AV Club there, and then into the creation of the Dissolve?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it predates my AV Club predates my arrival. Stephen Thompson, who is now the music editor at NPR and one of the hosts of Pop Culture Happy Hour and still a friend, was the founding editor and shaper of The Voice. And I came on as assistant editor, and eventually took over as editor in 2004. And we put together, I'm doing the short version of the story, but we put together a really great crew that had I think it gave the place a distinctive voice. I left the company in 2012. It was sort of, not really by choice. And I reached out to Pitchfork at that point and took my favorite writers from the AV Club, my favorite film writers, I should say, and started the Dissolve, which was, the Pitchfork-backed website that had a good 2-year run but was ultimately too beautiful for this world, apparently, and shut down in 2015. But it was, obviously there are ups and downs and to both publications, but on the whole, great experiences in both places. And I've been working as I did a 2-year stint at a site called Uprocks, which I liked as well. But then, they kind of, they had some budget issues. So after losing 3 editing jobs in a period of 6 years, it's like, maybe I'll just be a freelance writer now. And that's what I've done since 2017. And it's worked out okay.
Yeah, many friends of mine who are writers are in the same boat, but sort of are in that lineage of people who cut their teeth on articles on sites like the AV Club and the Dissolve.
One thing I really miss about being an editor is I wish that I was able to do more of this, because I was only like later in my AV Club tenure that we had really a respectable freelance budget. So I really liked giving new writers a chance. I love that our bylines mixed people's first bylines with people like Glenn Kenny, who was editor of Premiere. Such a nice. It was so cool to see those different voices side by side. And the Dissolve, we got to do that as well. And then I felt like a whole new crop of really good voices emerged, right as the Dissolve shut down, that I would have loved to work with. But oh well. But things change.
They had to pivot to video, so.
That wasn't really Pitchfork's issue, but the internet in general's pivot to video under I still don't know why there aren't thousands suing Facebook for deceptive practices there, but it sucked. I saw the changes in the internet in my lifetime have been not encouraging overall.
Yeah, I feel like speaking of that and bringing it back to the movie, I feel like so much of the ecosystem within that the movie portrays of music culture, and there I feel like there's an underlying background that all these people are connected by there's the Chicago Reader movie critic, there's a Chicago movie music critic, the Chicago Reader music critic. There's all this underlining background that it's not just that the record stores have disappeared. It's also that entire ecosystem of how people are connected to each other, the zine stuff, how the periodicals, it's all moved, it's all been moved online, and and there's a lot less money in it as well. You can't really I think you bring up in your Chicago Magazine article, you can't really survive as or the idea that the Chicago Reader would have a full-time movie critic where that would be her only job. That's not really tenable.
Yeah. No, it's a shame too. The readers, they're still hanging in there. Much support to them and everything. But yeah, it has changed. It was this huge, indispensable weekly Bible of coverage of culture and news, and just remember how thick that thing was. It was just, they had great writers too as well. So it's that's definitely changed. I got into this to write for a newspaper, right? My first byline in the AV Club was 1996, and I got paid $5 to review the movie Spy Hard, and I think the ticket cost more than the actual pay. But I remember just waiting by the place where the Onion was dropped off. Like, I'm going to see my name in print. It was pretty cool. And I wrote for the Isthmus as well, which is the alt weekly there. So it's like, that was just so cool to me to see my name in a newspaper. And then, that's how much. And we used to put the paper together, like paste it on sheets and carry and drive it. Stephen Thompson and I used to drive it to Wisconsin State Journal printing press late on Sunday nights. It's like, I'm glad I got to see the end of that, because I don't think that's really something that people even like 5 years younger than I am got to experience. That the world just does not exist anymore.
No, definitely not. I mean, I work in journalism, mostly fact checking, but I've written some articles and I've worked on stuff before. And I feel like the equivalent of that is, putting stuff into CMS and then hitting publish or checking the website the next day. And I've gotten a couple bylines in print, and it feels a lot better to actually have a physical thing and not just have it be this ethereal thing in the background into the world.
It's so cool whenever they have. I contributed to like a Rolling Stone, hasn't come out yet, but I probably shouldn't say what it is, but a list, and it's like it's good. Part of my contribution is going to be in print. It's like in print and Rolling Stone. Like my teenage self is over the moon of this.
I do just talking about this movie again. There is something that I kept thinking about because it does capture a certain feeling of the past, but then there's this other aspect of the movie that did remind me of the way we talk about pop culture now, which is the top five, the ranking, the listicles, all these things that sort of crept into the way that we talk about movies, the way we talk about music, the way we talk about art in general. What are your feelings about that? About like that sort of the way that people talk? I mean, that's the way that the ecosystem talked about music at the time as well in 2000. But do you see that as being sort of like an encroachment on the way that art is talked about?
I mean, not really, because I think about if it's the end of the conversation, absolutely. But I contribute to and do my own lists all the time, but in part because I think about how important lists were to me when I was forming my taste, like lists of best films and things like Rolling Stone's best albums of the 80s list, which I would just, thumb through that issue till it was thin and looking for, finding new stuff whenever, that I'd never heard of before. It's like, oh, who's this Richard and Linda Thompson? I've never heard of them. Why? They have the best album of the 80s. I should probably check this out at some point.
Yeah.
So I feel like lists are just great ways to discover new stuff when they're done well. And when they're done poorly, it can be kind of oppressive and annoying. But I think as tools of discovery, they're still fantastic. And I think in terms of they also kind of speak to the way we think about things ourselves, pop culture and otherwise. I mean, it's kind of funny to think of Rob going through this, applying the top five format to the breakups in his life, but it kind of makes sense in a way, especially someone who kind of his mind works that way already.
Yeah. No, these are like things, the way I interpret it is like, what are the things that impact you? What are the things that imprint on you and mean something in your life? Putting it in the top five format is just putting limits on that. And the sort of intersection that he talks about at the beginning of between, love and music, is so it makes sense that he thinks about his love life in the same way that he thinks about music.
Right.
Yeah, I sort of feel like the movie, there's like weird ways in which like a guy like Rob doesn't exist anymore. Just like in terms of like economically, I think it'd be kind of hard to be a guy who goes from working at a record store to then buying that record store now. But there's also ways that like everyone is sort of Rob, like the way that like, at least like on the internet, like everyone's always like making these lists and like kind of like gatekeeping certain aspects to themselves. Like, and like the kind of, there's that funny line at the beginning where it's like, it doesn't matter what you are like, it's matter what you like. And I feel like that's how a lot of people view the world right now.
Yeah.
Just like through this lens of like judging others by pop culture.
Even on Letterboxd, we have our top four that define us. And I like that because I'm changing it constantly and it can represent me on a different day. And there's, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Letterboxd is the video store to the world, I guess. What is my top 4?
Your current top
I mostly
4.
just log things. I don't have to actually investigate this at some point. I tend not to write that much because, like, why am I giving this away for free? But I do love Letterboxd.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I do. I feel like when it comes to the Letterboxd 4, I feel like I used to get too much in my head about it. Maybe because of this aspect of like what you choose is like how you're presenting yourself to the world. Like, whenever they ask like celebrities that on the red carpet or something, and everyone's like judging them based on it, like I feel like now I've settled to like, you know what, it's just gonna be my last favorite 4 movies that I watched, like that were new to me from the previous month, because then I don't have to, like, it doesn't say anything about myself as far as I know.
it just rotates.
Yeah.
I now I'm discovering it is blank. So I have no favorite films. I actually I'll have to update it at some point, but I always just kind of freeze when people ask me my favorite. I mean, I have some canned answers, but when people ask me my favorite anything, I tend to freeze. It's just it's like, or be like, it's more complicated than that, man. Which nobody wants to hear.
No,
but,
totally.
Yeah.
I feel like I read a lot, so all people are always asking me about my favorite books, or then like now because of this podcast, people are always asking my favorite movies. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, like I feel like it's just like this lifelong process, and that's why it's kind of funny that like Rob is so, he's so dead set. He knows exactly what his favorites are, and he's always like shifting those around.
Yeah,
and it's such an interesting perspective. But I think it's also the movie kind of presents it as an almost like how he's so fixed about all his likes and dislikes. The movie, I think, by the end is sort of presenting it as like, it's kind of like an immature way. Like he kind of like, he needs to like, the arc of the movie is him opening up himself to like all these other experiences.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this film is very affectionate, but also somewhat, pretty skeptical to the way Rob lives his life too.
Totally.
I think in terms of list making, though, I think he gets granular, which I think you kind of have to do to be interesting. Like, favorite films is boring. Favorite films starring, I don't know, American actors acting in Italy. That's a little more interesting, right? It's interesting. I mean, Nick Hornby's had such an interesting career too, because I felt like he started out writing books about men who just do not understand women.
Yeah.
And now he tends to focus on female protagonists. It's a really kind of interesting. It's almost like he learned so well from writing about clueless men,
right,
that he was able to move on to exploring the inner lives of women. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I do think like this movie is completely aware of what Rob is unaware of. Like, I do think this movie does do a good job. Like, the first time I watched this movie, I was probably in high school, and I thought Rob was the coolest guy on the planet. And then I watched this movie in college, and I was like, God, I didn't like the movie because of how much of a scumbag he was. And now, watching it, I'm settled in, I love the movie because of how flawed he is, and how much the movie is tracking his maturity.
Right. And I think it's kind of unclear whether it's going to stick at the end either, too. It doesn't clean that up.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that it doesn't, because I don't think that's a particularly. I don't think that's how life works. No. But yeah, it definitely It's definitely one of those movies where your vision of it shifts over the years. I don't think I ever thought Rob was cool necessarily, but he looks more and more questionable and less like someone to emulate. The older you get, like I didn't, but I do like showing, my daughter's 14, so I do like showing her stuff like this and getting her perspective on things. I think she would, but I worry with this that she just wouldn't like the movie because this is not a good guy. Maybe his heart's good, but his behavior doesn't bear it out. It was an interesting pivot for Cusack at the time too, because I felt like this is like, let's put nice Lloyd Dobler in similar roles. Let's put that under a magnifying glass and see what someone like that is, what a dark version of that might look like.
Totally. Yeah. It is
sensitive. Being sensitive doesn't make you good. I think that's part of this film.
Keith, that's absolutely it. The sensitivity, the feeling emotions isn't enough. It's what you do with that. And John Cusack is that sort of person in my mind of just like the sad boy, you know. He's so good at that hangdog face, just that you know, like don't talk to me today energy that I felt like kept me out of a lot of record stores and you know, movie stores where I wanted to talk to people about art and have them introduce me to this world. But there was this sort of like repellent that they had at times. And I do think like this movie exploring what a guy like that like does to his circle of friends, like to the women in his life, like it's sort of my favorite stretch of the movie is him coming to realizations about the 5 breakups and him completely getting the wrong lessons from almost each one of him making the same sweeping generalizations that led to the breakup in his sort of like him getting annoyed about the pen of the film critic, him judging
which we don't use.
No,
I've never known anyone to ever use one, but it's funny gag nonetheless.
It is an incredible gag, and that's in T2 of the Music Box, which I loved seeing, of course, at the that was like the fresh new theater of that decade. The second screen at the Music Box at that point. But I do find like each one of his realizations about the women in his life to like the movie sort of portrays it that he's like I figured it out, but he's still wrong. Like, and it takes to the end of the movie to him for him to like humanize his partners.
The one that I'm unclear on is Charlie, the Catherine Zeta-Jones character, because he clearly screws it up.
Yeah.
Like when he springs it on her, like, wants to know, but his realization that she's not who she was in her mind. I mean, he uses the word awful, which is kind of extreme, but I feel like that might actually be a moment of growth for him.
Yeah, I think that's true because I don't know if like him like realizing, I don't know if him coming to that realization because he thinks she's awful is like necessarily good growth, but I do agree that him just finally like kind of breaking her out of that idealized image and realizing like, oh, this person, just because she likes all these cool things doesn't mean I have to like her, I think is a step in the right direction of him like breaking out of his like kind of pop culture is how everyone should act kind of perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Are you a big Hornsby fan?
I have fallen off on reading his stuff. I read his stuff really, pretty thoroughly early on. I'm trying to think of what the last one I read. And it's not because there's a couple that I thought were a little, I felt like it kind of fell off, I think, after A Long Way Down. I should catch up, though, because I know some of his other books are well regarded. And I did like the film of Juliet Naked. I have not read the book, but yeah. Well, I mean, have you kept up? Should I go back and loop back and get catch all the other ones?
I haven't read them, but I was just.
I mean, High Fidelity is definitely a book I've read a couple times and really enjoyed. And this film is very true to the spirit of it as well.
Yeah, I want to say I watched this movie in high school, and then I think I was like, I don't have to read the book because I read the movie. I watched the movie, but then I did read About a Boy, and I remember really enjoying it. And I feel like that was kind of a step in his maturity wise, because that whole movie is also about a guy who's like incredibly immature, and his life is surrounded by pop culture, and then he kind of learns to grow up a bit.
Right, exactly. It's funny bit of trivia. Dick, the Todd Luiso character, he has a brief cameo in a later Hornsby book where the main character, I forget how she ends up. She ends up somewhere where she's talking about how she likes the group Air, and Dick, as if years had not changed him, says something like, kind of like, like, well, there are just a lot better French ambient bands out there if you want to look for them. So.
A writer that I think about, I mean, maybe I'm not exactly getting this right, but a writer that I thought about a lot while watching some of the Nick Hornsby adaptations was Diablo Cody. Someone who does play in that sort of pop culture referencey space, but also complicated coming of age characters. Do you see any sort of connective thread between those two writers, or am I sort of just imagining that?
And I think you're onto something. I mean, what came immediate mind was young adult, which this is very much another study in Arrested Development.
Mm-hmm.
A film I really liked too. I don't know if enough people saw it at the time.
No, I love young adult. That one's quite good. I have so much love for Jennifer's Body personally. A movie that was sort of completely dismissed and then reclaimed very quickly.
Yeah, I didn't. I was not the one to review it, and I did not hear great things, so I did not catch up with it till a couple years ago. I'm like, oh, this is really quite good.
It's really good. That sort of era of when Diablo Cody, like the Juno to Jennifer's Body arc of being like someone being lifted up to like the highest levels and then knocked down was when I was sort of coming of age in my pop culture understanding. And I being so pro Jennifer's Body and then reading all of the think pieces, there weren't think pieces about it. They were just bad reviews. I sort of did the thing that I think a lot of young people do, which is just change their opinion on it for a few years to reflect everyone else's before you can, develop your own voice. So it took a few more years of me unlearning that sort of behavior to come back around to it. And I wonder, how many more things I had that for where like my instinct was correct on first watch. And then I sort of cowed to that sort of overall opinion.
Yeah, I mean that happens, and also just things kind of shift over the years too. There's movies that I didn't love then that I love now, and you see things differently. It's just part of it. You can't be Rob. you can't be like Rob writing those top 5 lists that are set forever in stone. There's no way to live.
Yeah.
Something, I guess, bringing it back to Chicago a bit. You wrote another article, you're an essay for the Reveal, where you talk about watching movies set in Chicago from before your time living here, and feeling a sense of nostalgia for something you didn't experience. Are there other movies where, I guess, that you can think of right now where that's happened with?
I think the jumping off point for that was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when you see the for that piece was when you see the parade and there's all these movie theaters in the background downtown, like in the stretch around where the Chicago theater is now. And I feel like, I think maybe everyone feels this about life in general, but I feel like I arrived at Chicago as the party was shutting down. Like certainly the downtown theaters weren't there anymore, and or not as many, and then even more closed. Like while I was here, like I loved seeing a couple of films at McClurg Court, which at one point was the fanciest screen in the city, right? But I just caught the tail end of that. I think the last movie I saw there was they were not doing so well, and I remember having to go talk to projectionists about the film being out of focus or something. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of such an odd experience to see the place before knew it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like so I grew up in Cicero and then moved to the city proper in 2010, and I feel like weirdly I like in my mind, like whenever we visited the city, my dad really liked Wicker Park. So like my idea of Wicker Park my idea growing up of Wicker Park was sort of like what this movie represented, even before I actually watched the movie. And then I remember, and even throughout high school, I kind of had this like idealized image of it. And then I remember going to, and then I remember like in college visiting Wicker Park, and it had already, I mean that the version of the movie had already long gone, and it had already entered this new kind of bougification that we see now. But it's funny that you say you feel like you caught like the tail end of something, like you caught the tail end of something when you first moved here. But then now I felt like the same way when I was in high school.
Yeah, like holding on to the end of something and
yeah. And I feel like everyone, I don't know. I feel like it does feel like everyone just is always, I was like, yeah, I feel like right before I moved back, like, I don't know. Or I remember I went to a small liberal arts college where there was a really strong sense of culture, and every single year everyone was like, yeah, last year's the seniors, the ones who left, like they were the cool ones before, like now everyone's lame. And
right. Yeah, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and I think like downtown Dayton is doing a lot better now. There's more things to do there than there ever was when I was growing up. But at the same time, you feel this nostalgia for this first like big city, which Dayton is not. But to me, it was like it felt like the big city when I was growing up. So it's kind of impossible to avoid that. But I still like, a lot of times when I'm looking for inspiration for things to write, I use a website called newspapers.com, and I'll often find myself flipping through old issues of the Tribune, and just this city was just crawling with movie theaters everywhere. You couldn't turn a corner without hitting one, and I'm sorry to have missed that.
Yeah. I'm currently sort of in this phase of my life. I'm very interested in things of the past of the city, and a thing that I'm happy exists still as a building but no longer functions as a movie theater is the Ramova Theater in Bridgeport. And I got to go inside it and see it as it is now, and it's the sister building of the Music Box, so it's set up in a very similar way, sort of the same organ chambers and the same layout of a space. I very embarrassingly went to Sox Fest, the White Sox. That was why, my into that, and it was just like the exact opposite vibe of what I wanted. I want people respecting the space and treating it well, and all these things. And there was all these drunk Sox fans there. But I'm very interested in what the city came from and how that sort of informs our current and you write about this in your piece a little bit, Keith, too, that we do still have some of these spaces. I mean, I work for the Music Box, but I work for the Music Box because it's one of my favorite places on the planet. And I'm very grateful that it still exists. But there's many different places that, like the Green Mill, there's still record stores around, Laurie's Planet of Sound. There's still these places. They still exist, and there's people who care about keeping places, third spaces alive.
But I'm thinking about some of the music venues that have closed since this film was made, like shortly after. I mean, did we lose the Lounge X and the Double Door not too long after this film?
Yeah.
I never made it to Lounge X but I made it to Double Door at least once before.
So many of those venues that are mentioned in this movie are no longer here. Shuba's is one that's still around. That's the other thing. I'm such a lover of history in the past, but I'm also I'm not going to these venues all the time. I'm not I'm not currently in the scene.
I mean, as much as I love to be negative about the current state of things, I do feel like we're in a kind of, in the same way that in the kind of, I mean, pretty much around the time that this movie came out, I feel like, and I think they make jokes about it in the movie about the prominence of CDs. There was, at least when I was my dad was an avid record collector, and I remember when I was a kid, everyone was like, "Why do you have a bunch of my dad?" Whenever my dad would have people over, he was like, "Why do you have a bunch of people over? Why do you have all these records lying around? Can you even play them?" And then by the time I was a teenager, it was cool again, and then record collecting became the new in thing again. And I sort of feel like after the decimation of these third places and record stores and bookstores in the 2000s when everything became digitized, I do feel like the nostalgia for bringing them back, there are more new bookstores.
Yeah.
There are some new record stores, and I do think people want these places again after their destruction. And I think part of the destruction of the record store was obviously Tower Records, which no longer exists. But
right.
I do feel like now people are more aware of we actually like these mom and pop stores. Actually we don't need to order everything on Amazon. And I think it's obviously a lot more expensive to get those places, but I do see some amount of hope in the resurgence. We might not get a movie theater on every corner, but hopefully we can at least we can get some new record stores.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm fairly optimistic about the current state of things. At least in terms of enough people who are enthusiastic about or hardcore devoted to this to keep things alive. I don't even with the current obviously you might have more insight than into this than I do, but I with the downturn in movie theaters, I worry less about art houses.
Yeah.
In some ways, because that audience is it's scaled correctly for that audience.
Right.
What I worry is about the industry, the top of the industry having that you not make, we're already almost to the point where it's just superhero movies these days or franchises. For it to be even more of that, or for that to even go away, that's a more troubling. I'm more worried about that than anything else.
I was just joking about this with a friend the other day that like I'm like our generation, there's a generation the before us who is nostalgic for the spaces we were talking about, and I think that Paco and my generation is a little bit nostalgic for like those horrible big stores like Borders and Radio Shack, and there's things that like from my childhood that like just like walking around a T-Mobile, which is so horrible, like to think about what that put in me. But I do have that feeling inside of me where I'm like, I did discover a lot of amazing stuff through spaces like that. I mean, Radio Shack, I currently, really love vintage cameras and stuff and gear, and the weirdos who worked in those stores were weirdos like us.
Right. They knew what they were talking about.
They knew what they were talking about. The guy stationed at the Borders, music section was more welcoming to me than any record store. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit, I don't want Borders to return.
No, but they had their places though. The first time I went to a Best Buy, and they were really, they basically just stocked every CD because it got people in the door to buy the expensive stuff, except for people like me who just wanted to buy the CDs.
Right.
I also remember Tower, for all its issues. Like I remember the night Nina Simone died, I happened to be at a Tower and got into this really long conversation with somebody about seeing Nina Simone live, and these things don't happen elsewhere.
Yeah. I feel very similarly.
Something I recently Jeremy, I guess this week we saw Pavements.
Yeah.
And I feel like the kind of cultural moment portrayed in Pavements, or at least in like the documentary aspects of Pavements, is sort of related to the cultural moment that High Fidelity captures, and sort of like this weird time when the counterculture, like the fact that like High Fidelity was a Hollywood movie is kind of wild to me, given like the type of Hollywood movies we see now.
Yeah.
Like this moment where like the more countercultural aspect was to a certain extent the mainstream, like the fact that Pavement was on MTV, the fact that the fact that a movie about a record store clerk was like this Hollywood production, and I guess like and connecting that to like the Borders and Best Buy stuff, like there was a time where like you could just get any type of book or movie at a Borders, like you didn't have to go to a specialty place for it. And then I don't know where I was going with that, but.
Yeah, well, the insidious thing is obviously that they just had the money to buy everything.
Yeah.
So they draw those people in and suck off customers from the indie stores. But I mean, I feel like also like Pavement and this film, and so there was a brief moment when Gen X was being courted by mainstream media, or they're trying to figure out, which is I'm squarely in the middle of that generation, and like they're trying to figure out how to appeal to us, and occasionally got it right. I mean, this film, obviously it's you're telling a story and it's streamlined, but I mean and it's a little Hollywooded up, but not really. I mean, it is true to I mean, it's made by people who knew that world. I think less the director than the people around him. But I remember reading an article at the time someone trying to explain what made Stephen Frears a good director, and it's like I forget, it might have been in Sight and Sound, but someone saying like he's not someone who's going to know the right Bob Dylan song to put on a track, but he's someone who knows somebody who's going to tell him and he's going to use it well, which I thought was an interesting take on someone like Frears, who's just kind of been doing this for a long time and been a good director across a lot of different genres.
Yeah, I think
sometimes, not always.
He allows for Cusack to be the authorial voice of this in many ways. And the production design and the use of Chicago, I have to give Frears like a lot of credit for. of trusting his collaborators, of letting. I mean, we've been talking a lot in our discussion of other Chicago movies how poor, bad, production design, especially things where they're telling you it's Chicago but it's not Chicago. Like most recently, A Working Man was supposedly set in Chicago, shot completely in London. Just really god awful production design. The background posters, the stickers, the just like deciding where to point the camera and how to shoot the city matters a lot. It frames everything for you. Rob does have a pavement poster in his apartment. I don't know if you guys clocked that.
Yeah.
But it says a lot about the character. It says a lot about who these people are. And it's not
a lot of posters right in this for
So
sure.
many.
I actually have the Wilco poster you can see deep in the background of his store is one that I bought myself. But they really do they get it right. That's actually talking about shifting attitudes, by the way, of towards film. Was like I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I want Rob's apartment.
Yeah.
All those shelves, all those posters, all those vintage radios and stuff. Like that'd be the coolest place to live.
And now.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
I could dedicate a room to that kind of stuff in my house, but I can't live the whole house that way.
No.
Yeah. I feel like Frears is a good choice for this movie because I think if it was just made by like John Cusack and his friends, I think it needs the kind of distance that an older voice can kind of provide in making some of the things a bit more like ironic than maybe if it was just like a guy who is Rob's age, maybe not realizing the extent of his immaturity. Like I think like it needs like a kind of like older voice being like, well, like come on, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking at the time that Frears was kind of an odd choice, particularly to do a version of the story set in America. But no, it worked out pretty well.
I guess speaking to the Frears choice, there's a book that came out last year, I believe, called Top 5 by Andrew Buss about the making of this movie. And I read it last year. And something interesting was how all the people he talked to kept talking about how excited they were that Frears was directing this movie. Like everyone was like, oh my God, Stephen Frears, like that's so awesome. And then other than this movie and I guess Dangerous Liaisons, I can't really think of another big.
Did he do My Beautiful Laundrette?
Oh,
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like an important movie for me.
Okay.
Like foundational for me at least. But
And-
like the later Frears, the more Oscar baity stuff, not for me. But he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he is. I mean, honestly, nothing against him as a director, and I'm sure a perfectly nice fellow, but the worst interview I've ever had in my life was Stephen Frears.
Oh, you have to tell us about that.
Oh, it never even ran, but it was just a matter of he's clearly someone who did not want to be on a press tour, who was on a press tour,
Yeah.
interviewing in a hotel, he was eating breakfast the whole time, and basically just kind of give it, I'd ask him a question that sounded pretty smart to me,
Yeah.
and he'd be like, yeah, and then kind of give me like a look like I'm not going to say anything else beyond that.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, dude,
Come on,
this
man.
is awful.
Pick me up.
What movie was it for?
It was for the movie Tamron Drew too, which was not great. It wasn't terrible either, but
Never even
obviously-
heard of that.
yeah, you wouldn't. It's got,
I fall off at some point on him. Like some of the early ones. I mean, Dangerous Liaisons is so special, I think. But, I watched through Philomena. I didn't pick up Florence Foster Jenkins or Victorian Abdul. I sort of dropped off on him. He's sort of like one of the most successful journeymen, in my opinion.
For sure.
He doesn't have like a distinct voice in the same way that some of our favorite, but he's made some of the movies that, end up on people's shelves. I'm sure one of his movies is in the Criterion Collection. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, more than one. I think more than one. Yeah, the Grifters and the Hit are both in there.
Right.
I mean, I like these guys. Like, I'm kind of like a reluctant auteur theorist. I end up like sort my movies by director, but at the same time, I like these guys that kind of defy what what is Richard Linklater auteur theory is a little tough to pin down, right? I mean, he's a distinctive filmmaker, but he's all kind of all over the place in terms of the types of films he makes.
Yeah. No, you're right. I like guys like this too. They're interesting to me. Because you know, auteur theory is just one way to frame something. You know, for me, that's just one lens to view things through. There's so many others that are interesting to me, and just being like, you know, firm in that like this is the only way to view the world. I don't agree with that. But if we didn't have guys like this, we wouldn't have a lot of my favorite movies.
Exactly, especially in the studio era as well.
Yeah, when the studio was thriving. Now I lean more towards auteurs because I'm like, I want to see some distinct voice here. Like I want to see something.
I feel like Marvel's sort of the auteur diffusing machine, you know, like you get interesting directors in that machine and they do their least interesting work or the least distinctive work. There's a couple that can make their voice heard over that, but that's kind of,
I think like someone like Coogler, I keep talking about him, but I love his good. I love his movies very much. He makes good movies, but he's more in the vein of like a Steven Spielberg, where he's like so into entertaining the audience and he's so keyed into what made Hollywood movies so good that it gives me hope that if we could get past whatever stage we're in right now, what late stage capitalism we're in right now, and get back to a functional version of the thing that we love, there are people who can, you know, I mean, Coogler's more distinctive. He has his more flourishes than someone like but like there will be like 8 other people who want to make movies like Coogler who could possibly slot in and make, you know, works like this.
And I feel like Sinners is one of those movies that like inspires people too. Like I want to make, you know, people who want to say, I want to make a movie like that. Like maybe not even like people who are working now, but the next generation coming up.
Yeah. The soundtrack, this was a soundtrack that I had in my car, my parents' car. I don't even remember why we had it. I don't remember my mom. My mom would be the one who liked this movie more than my dad probably. But we just had it and I listened to it kind of a lot. The Bob Dylan song you mentioned, Keith, like I guess I just never connected it to the rest of the Bob Dylan. I just think about it from this movie. Mm-hmm. Did you listen to was the soundtrack something for you or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was stuff this is going to sound like I'm bragging, but a lot of stuff I knew already. But what made me appreciate the soundtrack was it was a real like record nerd choices, right? It's like you're doing the Who Loves the Sun, the Velvet Underground song is one that Doug Yule sings on from that last album, you know, and it's a great song, but it's not like the one people go to right away. It was like, you know, and all the Love, you know, I think there's 3 songs from Love on it, which is like the ultimate record store nerd cult band in some ways. Like it was a very knowingly assembled soundtrack. I mean, it was the, you know, a soundtrack for a movie about this protagonist, but also sort of like, you know, showcasing the best of what a protagonist like this could do. Like this is a soundtrack that Rob Gordon would have put together, right?
Totally. That's what I adore about it. It's so well curated, but it absolutely has like a singular voice, like someone was putting together a mixtape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sort of feel like this was this era of when I was a teenager, I would always go to Brown Elephant and buy CDs, and I feel like I would always gravitate towards the soundtrack.
If you want to stock up on great CDs now, go to Brown Elephant now, because there's so many collections are just kind of ending up there, and they're it's not just the picked over stuff that you might expect.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like this era had a lot of really great soundtracks, and I feel like the art of the soundtrack has kind of been lost in the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree also you're not making a cool soundtrack album anymore because they're not going to sell, right? I mean, you know, the things about Pulp Fiction and other like such, you know, best-selling soundtracks is they you know, people would buy them, people would spend money on to have these discs, and there's less of that now. The downside was something like, I remember we watched Mission Impossible 2 the other night, and then you get like sort of the you know, horrible like Limp Bizkit stuff that really is like, you know, grounds this movie in a very particular place and time. If Tom Cruise's haircut didn't already do that.
I want to bring this up just because I wonder if you were around in the city at the time, but did you have any connection to the real world situation that happened? I was just going to say that like that was sort of a push away from yuppie culture that I feel like Wicker Park was like a big part of like die yuppie scum, get out of here, don't change our city, that like the city's completely succumbed to in the years since. But as someone who was maybe a Chicagoan during that time, did you have any experience with that?
I caught a little bit of it. I arrived, I think, in August 2001. I think what doesn't turn up in that Chicago Magazine article is I had like 3 weeks before, as a Chicagoan, before 9/11.
Right.
So I just got like a little bit of the city before everything changed in the whole world. But I do remember kind of like driving down to Wicker Park and like kind of spying where the real world house was. But I lived up in I lived up in Andersonville for years, so it was a little distant from what was actually happening there. I mean, I saw that neighborhood go through some profound transformations over the years, but Wicker Park I only saw from a distance.
We're actually recording right now from Andersonville.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's where I live right now.
Okay.
We're over
I lived at Ashland and like more or less Ashland and Winona for years.
We are 1 block away from where I used to live. We are Ashland and Carmen.
Oh, real? Oh, wait, you're just like on my. Wait, hold on. What's?
Are we in the room you recorded?
Where are you? If you, maybe just like tell me later what your actual address is.
Yeah.
Maybe you're in my old house.
The corner. I mean, I will dox myself right now. The corner of my address is.
I was.
Wow.
Wow.
Really funny.
How about that?
You mentioned Andersonville before, and I was going to say it then, and we just moved on with the conversation.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny. A neighborhood staple that I'm so grateful still exists is Women and Children First.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's something that I've just been waiting, and now it feels like it's going to be around. But there was a time, especially during the pandemic, when everything was closing, when all the institutions that I were like certain were going to last forever were closing down. The neo-futurists and the Women and Children First and some of these staples of the community that I grew up going to, I was so worried we're going to be gone by the time we went back outside. But the neighborhood has changed in many ways. I think every Chicago neighborhood has gone through the same process. The sort of, I don't want to call it the ramification, but the neoliberalization and the push towards the private, starting in the Daley administration and probably a lot earlier than that. But in my lifetime, these neighborhoods are being bled of their character, and sometimes even the more unsavory aspects of these neighborhoods we miss. Do you have any memories of that or?
Yeah, I remember there used to be like same block, like over on Clark Street. There used to be auto mechanics, and it would just like I remember they never seemed to get any business, but there were always people there. I remember one time my wife walked by. I was like, "Yeah, I walked by the mechanic shop, and someone was just watching porn."
Oh my, bold.
Yeah, I know. I do miss I do miss that. There was a little. I won't say it was gritty, but there was definitely more of a there's more funk there when I first moved in. Like the place where that is now the Mexican restaurant that was just up north of Starbucks. I forget what it's called now. But for years when I moved there, we just referred to the place as Big Sale Store Closing because for a couple of years they had a place. It was just a sign that said Big Store Sale Closing, and it was like what was left of an antique shop that had been there. I'm just kind of like trying to sell off its stock, but it was a huge space. So you'd go to the basement, and there would be just like coat racks filled with marching band uniforms. It's just like things you would not find anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you just don't, that sort of funkiness is just not really there anymore. It's a little bit, I mean, it's like the Brown Elephant, where it obviously used to be a movie theater and they haven't really transformed the space in a way that I think is makes it a better place to go. You'll find it if you look for it, but it's a little harder to find.
Wait, did you say the Brown Elephant used to be a movie theater?
Yeah.
I
forget what.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it used to be the it's going to come to me as soon as I get. I think it used to, the Kalo Theater. It used to be like the Kalo restaurant.
So much sense.
Thinking about the layout of it.
I was just like, that's just the layout of the Brown Elephant.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah,
Cinema Treasures, right? You know the site Cinema Treasures, of course.
Yeah.
Look up Kalo Theater. And I guess it's owned by the same family that owned Kalo Restaurant, which is still there. We just had pizza from them the other night.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. There's so many weird Chicago cathedrals. I find Jack Black's character in this movie one of the great supporting performances. And now I think it's apparent. A thing that I can't undo. I'm sorry. I'm trying to untangle my thoughts about this. A thing that I can't do is the same thing I couldn't do in Primal Fear. We just covered Primal Fear on the podcast, Keith. And like I can't get the Edward Norton as surprise a villain thing. Like I'm like, yeah, of course he's a squirrely guy. Like we all know Edward Norton. But that was Edward Norton's first role. I can't get Jack Black, like the surprise in this movie that Jack Black is good at singing. Being the reveal at the end is so funny to me and so of its time and so like, oh, we didn't have a relationship to this guy, but it's definitely a funny situation.
He's so good in it too. Like I knew him a little bit from Mr. Show and Tenacious D's first episodes had come out on HBO. So it was cool to see him in this movie but like you watch him, like the moment he walks in, you realize like, oh, this is why Jack Black is a huge star now.
Busts through the door,
right? You know,
literally singing at the top of it, you know, just like doing air guitar, doing the most. Who's the other clerk?
Todd Luizzo,
yeah,
he went on, he directed at least one movie. He's still around. He's still doing stuff. He's just not as prominent as Jack Black, obviously.
I think all the supporting performances in this movie are quite good, and fascinating to me. It just the cast of characters that they develop, all that stuff makes me so happy just to watch this movie. This movie is a comfort movie for me. I don't think that's that weird. I think this and Almost Famous scratch a very similar itch.
For sure.
And are in the same milieu. But I there's probably a third movie in there somewhere that does that for me. But you know, just like movies that are in and around music but aren't musicals, that use music as a way to tell stories, and with just like killer character actors. Those are some of my favorite movies. The X's. I mean, just some great performances there too.
Oh yeah, across the board, it's really well cast, and I like Ibn Hale. I'm not sure I pronounce it correctly, but the Danish actress who plays his girlfriend, who basically doesn't seem to have done. He did a couple other Hollywood films. I think I just looked her up before this, and like she kind of like phased out of film and TV. I think she does theater now, mostly in Denmark, which like good for her. I mean, not everyone has to try to be a big Hollywood star, but I think she's really good in this movie.
She's in the Danish cast of Zootopia. That's just the last thing on her.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
It's so funny to like find who are the voice casts of different countries. It's there is like, I mean, Joan Cusack is one of my favorite actresses, period.
For sure.
And I'm sad that we don't get a Joan Cusack movie a year, but I'm happier for her if she's happier running her shop. But just like the power to have those actual siblings play off of each other with all of the experience that they have. It just translates so well in their scenes, where I think she's in 4 scenes maximum. But each one of them has an impact. I gotta just adore Joan Cusack.
They're so good together, and she's like kind of plays the same role in Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yeah.
Kind of slide into a similar spot, and she kills it there too. She's the best.
The best.
Yeah. Another movie with a great soundtrack.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of a shame in some ways that team, that Cusack and Steve Pink and D.V. DeVincentis, they seem to have like kind of a nice thing going there for a little while. Yeah.
All right. Are there any other aspects of the movie we haven't talked about you wanted to bring up?
No, we kind of covered a lot of it. I mean, I do appreciate the detail of getting all the posters right and getting all the records right and having like things in the background, like there's records, the record section is called like garbage or something like that, right. and you could tell it's just the stuff they're making fun of.
The thing that I love, one of my favorite parts of this movie are the skateboarding kids who are terrorizing him. As someone who's dealing with horrible Southport teens on the block of the music box right now. of them like wanting to be a part of it but not knowing how to express that. What is the name of their band? God, it's so funny.
Oh, like it's like I sold my mom's wheelchair. Or is that the name
It's
of the
something
album?
like that. Yeah, it's
I think that's
so
the name of
funny.
the album, isn't it?
That
I don't know.
and whatever the fake band names that Jack Black comes up with are so good.
Kathleen Turner Overdrive.
Kathleen Turner Overdrive is so funny. That's such a good joke. That's probably just a Jack Black off the dome. If I had
It
to
feels
guess.
like it, right? It feels like they kind
That's
of
not
just
re-
let him
it-
let
you
him
know,
go every once in a while in that movie.
Yeah, just let him go off.
You brought up the records a second ago. Something funny that I learned in that book, Top 5, is that so the actual, like, they did have like a ton of records because a Christian music store had recently closed, so they had just bought all these like Christian records. But then they had to like, obviously they had all the fronts where you see like the cool records. They bought those at I think Dusty Groove, but then all the rest of them, it's all just like random like Christian music.
That's so funny. Yeah, Dusty Groove's still hanging in there too. That's
Yeah.
a good stop.
Yeah, no, we need
yeah,
to hold on.
So I kind of always imagine, that's funny to find out because I was find that out because I was kind of amused that the thought of like everyone fighting over who gets to take the records home at the end of the shoot, but perhaps that wasn't so much of a problem.
No. That's not the on-set prop that you want to keep. You want to keep the Shubas poster in the background. Do you have, Keith, a top 5 bands or a top 5 Chicago movies?
See, there you go. I'm on the spot. I don't know. But I
Yeah.
mean, Chicago movies, I think this would have to be
In there.
one of them for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's my Chicago, right? Like I
Yeah.
know this world. And they mostly got it right. And also I love anything that has I love anything that has the music box in it, frankly. Like this and like what was that Channing Tatum movie that like opened with like this loving shot of the music box marquee a few years ago. That was good too. And I love that scene in Paper Girls where she goes to see 2001 was shot in the music box
Yes.
as well. Always happy to see that theater.
No,
screen.
I'm so every time it's on screen, I'm like beaming with pride. I'm like, hey, look what you did. It's going to be in the new season of The Bear. They just filmed
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they just filmed at the music box recently.
Well, that must have been madness, right?
Yeah, it was a bunch of people outside wondering what we were doing, and then like there's some account that posts the filming locations on Twitter. So the rabid fans came out looking for Jeremy. What's his name? Jeremy
Alan White.
Jeremy Allen White.
Jeremy
Alan
Allen
White.
White.
I'm sorry, Jeremy Iron.
I thought you were talking about yourself in the third person.
No,
They were looking for you.
they were not looking for me. Do you have sort of talking about him? They just released that interesting trailer for the Bruce Springsteen documentary. Do you have an opinion about music biopics?
I watch all of them almost, I think, and hate most of them.
Yeah.
So, and like even one like there's I mean, there's things that like I get hung up on. Like I actually thought A Complete Unknown had a lot of really good stuff in it, but the things that really bugged me about it. I worry that the Springsteen one's going to be the same way. It's based on a really good book though, so we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, they used the corniest lines for the trailer. I wonder if the actual
corny.
tone of the movie is going to feel different.
Yeah, and I wonder also if
I'm-
context makes a difference. Like that whole hole in the floor thing. If it's done, I mean, maybe in different contexts it wouldn't come off as so corny. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll reserve
see.
judgment. This is why I usually don't watch trailers.
Oh God, yeah.
But I did watch. That
I had to
one.
stare into the sun.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if what Jeremy Allen White's Bruce voice sounds like.
It's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Who's in this movie? High Fidelity. I always forget that there's that brief boss scene.
Right.
That's yeah. I guess Cusack knew him a little bit, so that's
Apparently
how
they had to get Bruce to sign some waiver saying that he wouldn't copyright any of his noodling.
That's funny. That's funny though, because Springsteen will show up for any documentary just about. It sounds like there was some wrangling to get him into this movie, but now you'll just get him for any documentary. And I love. Did you see the We Are the World documentary?
No, I missed that one.
It's pretty good, but like you could tell he does not like the song. But he's like, this song clearly meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to find the nice thing he can say about it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the full Range Life movie that they're going to release.
Oh, is there going to be a longer cut?
No, I'm just
No, I thought you meant. I thought you meant of Pavements. Oh yeah, I have the feeling with Range Life we've seen all the existing footage, but I
They
would
used
definitely
it.
watch a fuller version.
The part of the Pavement stock that I connected to the most was the Broadway musical.
It's
I'm
good,
like
right? I actually found myself kind of moved by it.
I was moved by it, and that had more sincerity than the biopic. The biopic thing is just so silly and not something that they're interested in. But the sincerity of the Broadway musical, I was like, oh, this is kind of sweet.
It feels like also, and I tried to put this in my review for the reveal, but it felt like you almost like you scrape down enough layers of pavement and you find this real base level of sincerity that to what they're doing. You know,
They're pretending to not care.
right? Yeah. Hey, that's Gen X in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they're the quintessential Gen X band.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And yeah, anytime.
Is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
I mean, my main thing is The Reveal, which is the newsletter I co-write with Scott Tobias, another AV Club and Dissolve veteran I've worked with for years. And we're just, by the time this comes out, we'll have moved to thereveal.film. We're not on Substack anymore. We're on Ghost, but I purchased that URL. I was like, yeah, thereveal.film. I want to own that URL. So that's where we are now. And you can read me, and I'm on the Next Picture Show podcast, which I also, Scott's on that with Genevieve Koski and Tasha Robinson, two other people that we've worked with for a long time, where we take a new movie and bring in a classic film and kind of hold them up to each other and see what they look like next to one another. And I write for places like Vulture and sometimes The Ringer and TV Guide and things like that. I'm out there. You can find me on Blue Sky, mainly at Keith Phipps 3000.
Thank you so much to Keith Phipps for that lovely conversation. Bye, Keith.
Bye.
Have a good one. That was, this movie is a really good text about Chicago. And I want to talk a little bit more about the neighborhood that this takes place in. High Fidelity takes place in Wicker Park.
Yes, Wicker Park, a city that no one has any opinions about. Wicker Park, I think something that we talked about with Keith a bit, and he mentions in his article, was sort of how this movie was a portrait of Wicker Park at the time.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing is that I think it was sort of, I think if you look at the overall history of Wicker Park, it was sort of the last gasp of what the movie was portraying as this like super arty, like music-y culture.
Yeah.
Where like artists lived and like you could have a record store and stuff. So historically, I think there was a point in time where Wicker Park was a really rich neighborhood. By the 60s and 70s, it was a bit more run down, but artists were starting to move there, and it was still a very cheap place to live. And then in the 90s is kind of when the Wicker Park of this movie started kind of coming about. And there were a bunch of bands there at the time. Liz Phair made her famous album Exile in Guyville about Wicker Park and all the guys that lived around there.
Guyville.
And there was this, I want to say like 93 or 94, there was this Billboard magazine article or a cover story called Calling Chicago Cutting Edge's New Capital. And it was this big article just about how cool Chicago was and how there are all these bands, and it focused specifically on Wicker Park.
Yeah.
And I think like generally it's believed that that's kind of when the transition of Wicker Park being like an artist place went into like, that's when it started like bougifying and becoming like more gentrified. And I mean, like obviously that process was already going on when the artists like moved in there. So by the time that High Fidelity came out, Wicker Park was already kind of like starting to become more lame.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that this movie is simultaneously an image of like Wicker Park at its coolest, but also like the last gasp. Yeah. Because like, as you brought up, like The Real World, they filmed the year after and there was a bunch of protests.
Yeah. Someone threw a brick through a window, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so it's interesting how the movie is simultaneously an image of a time and also the movie is itself nostalgic for something that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I think it's, it says a lot about the neighborhood, that it attracted a certain type of person, an artist, a performer. And then what comes with attracting those people are businesses trying to chase them down, which is one of the forms that gentrification takes, where it's like students move in who are broke, but then the things that students need, companies see an opening there. And you can kind of see that with Wicker Park, where like there might have been, and there still are, a bunch of thrift stores. There's also an Urban Outfitters.
Yeah.
There is, all these places tailored to the tastes of hipsters.
Yeah, I feel like it went from, this movie is maybe a good exemplar of that. I feel like it went from being the hipster neighborhood to now it's kind of like a simulacrum of the hipster neighborhood. It's kind of like now we're in the idea of it. Like you go
hipster
there
as an experience.
Yeah, but when you actually walk around there and you go there, it doesn't.
Yeah, you don't feel that at all.
No, definitely not. But I mean, and then like we talked about it. I mean, like I feel like this movie was a big. I guess also I would go there in the 2000s, and I feel like I had that image of Wicker Park, and then but when I actually grew up and started spending more time there, I was like, oh, it's already kind of gone.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's some really great places that are still around.
Yes,
but
those feel like holdouts.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, everyone's always like, I'm so terrified of the day that like Myopic goes out of business or something. Now there's a Barnes and Noble there.
Yeah.
Or not there, but like near there. But yeah, so this movie, I think because it filmed in the area, and I think John Cusack did spend a lot of time there. Like, I think it does a really good job of making that image.
Yeah.
I don't know. You do watch the movie and you're like, damn, I wish it was still like that.
Yeah. The Liz Phair thing, the exit in Guyville, it's so fascinating because there is a reputation of the type of guy who moves to Wicker Park or Logan. I guess Logan and Wicker I always sort of put together in my mind, although they are distinct.
I feel like Logan now, I mean, I guess like Logan has been like the cool neighborhood since we were in high school. So I feel like now there's probably somewhere else that everyone's
that we don't know about.
Yeah. But I lived there for a couple of years. I have friends who live there. They're very fine people, but I do feel like now it's already, I mean, just like from like 6 years ago, it's so different.
Yeah.
And it's already past what High Fidelity is portraying Wicker Park as.
Right.
You know? Because now there's like
but I mean, like the
Federales, like.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, exactly. Well, I mean, I think now like they're kind of coexisting.
Yeah.
They're in that middle space where it's like there are people who are trying to do things on a low income, and then there's also this like very bougie yuppie culture that pervades the rest of the city.
And I feel like that's kind of what Wicker Park was when we were young teenagers.
Yeah.
Like it was still there was still like more of a tension.
And I would say like in the movie, there is a hostility that the record store people have towards the yuppies who walk in. Like, it's not showing the city as just all the cool guys go there. It's like everybody goes and has to buy a record. The business guy comes in and asks for a record for his 14-year-old daughter, and Jack Black
like freaks out.
It's so funny. But they have a hostility towards like, man, get the fuck out of my neighborhood, man, like kind of vibe. That was very real back then. And I feel like now, I don't know. I have no connection to that neighborhood. I have no reason to go to Wicker Park anymore.
Yeah, I was there last weekend, but that was just because we wanted to show my in-laws like around.
Yeah. There's cool like pockets.
Yes.
But I can I can get those things other places.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like there's still holdouts, but yeah. I mean, Reckless is Reckless.
Yeah, but there's also other Recklesses.
There's other Recklesses.
Yeah.
There's also other record stores and closer to where I am. But yeah, like that, like sort of what Liz Phair was talking about was like Guyville was slang for the messy, inbred rock and roll boy culture. So there was this very male, punk showy, sensitive guy thing that was like overtaking the neighborhood at that time.
Yes, and so in Top 5 by Andrew Buss, Jack Black actually kind of describes how this was the last gasp of Wicker Park, or like the indie scene. He has a quote saying, "It's kind of like the last of the Mohicans. It's this last shining moment, and we kind of captured it," which is pretty funny.
There's places that like people hung out there. Earwax, Hot House, Czar Bar, Urbis Orbis, The Busy Bee, The Empty Bottle, Milk of Burgundy. Some of those places are still around.
Yeah, some of them. I mean, yeah, and I mean in the movie, Rainbow Club, great bar, it's still there.
Do you know what my favorite detail is of the Wicker Park place? Is John Cusack's Decibel shirt. Decibel is like a very important place to buy audio equipment. And I had a friend who worked there for many years.
Nice.
So I was like, I know Decibel, and he's wearing a Decibel shirt in most of the movie. So it's like, you know, the movie really understands the location, understands the space.
And I think we talked about this briefly, but a lot of that was because John Cusack and Steve Pink and TV, whatever.
Yeah.
They were close friends, and they spent all their time in Chicago. And like that's kind of like, I think the movie, at least the production of the production design of the movie, I think came from their experiences. That's
why the quote that came out about this movie by Nick Hornsby, that the High Fidelity movie seems like John Cusack. It's just a movie of John Cusack reading my novel, makes no sense to me.
Because it's so clearly, that's not just the only thing. Yeah, I guess if you only focus on the dialogue.
Words. Yeah, he's a writer. So it's like, I understand that. He's taking the words and putting them in a completely, but like the entire milieu is Chicago. And like, that changes a lot of things.
Yes. It was at some point when they were optioning, they were considering setting it in Boston, starring Jim Carrey.
I would watch that. I would watch that now.
Yeah, I'd watch that now. We didn't talk about this with Keith, but a few years ago, there was a remake of this movie into a TV show starring Zoe Kravitz.
Yes, who is the daughter of Lisa Bonet, one of the important side characters in this movie.
I always in my mind, she's a much bigger part of this movie than she actually, because she's such a good presence.
Yeah.
And then every time I watch this movie, it's like, oh, she's in it for like 5-10 minutes total.
And she's a little bit of that like sort of 2000s manic pixie dream girl thing.
Yes, but she doesn't like make him learn anything.
Yeah, you're right. She's just cool. She's effortless.
Yeah.
This is a movie about the way men idealize women.
Yes, definitely.
So it's about that. I'm not using that as just a flat insult of the movie. But it is sort of, the movie does indulge a little in that character.
Yes.
But she doesn't end up with him. She, they go into each other's lives, and then she's around, and
Yeah, she's sort of presented as almost, I feel like she's cooler than him, but in terms of like her relationship to men, she's sort of like, they're kind of like counterparts in a way. And that's not who he wants to end up with. No. She's sort of like, oh, here's like the person who I want to be, someone who knows a lot about music, someone who makes music, someone who's like, this is their entire life. And then they get together, and he's not particularly, he's thinking about his other girlfriend. And I think it's sort of like, she's a step to his further growth into like an adult who actually cares about real things instead of just pop culture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I do want to see her more in it because she's a really good actor.
Really good. In the book,
yes,
that character's a white American singer. So like, it give you the American perspective. It's interesting to cast a black actress as this sort of counterpoint to this sort of this vibe that he's curating. Yeah. She comes in with like a very stoner vibe, whereas he has PBR and cigarette energy.
Yeah.
And she just sort of like wisps in, and she's like, whatever, man, and leaves. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of the TV show High Fidelity with Lisa Bonet's daughter,
Zoe Kravitz? I think that, the show came out in 2019.
Yeah.
Around that time, I rewatched this movie so that I could watch the show.
Yeah.
And then I watched one episode and just couldn't really get into it. I know some people really like it.
Yeah. It has a good reputation, I think, although it did get canceled after its first season.
Yes. And it got, it had a good cast, and it was. I mean, what the show does is Zoe Kravitz plays the Rob character essentially, and what neighborhood? It's set in New York.
Yeah.
It's set in
Brooklyn.
Crown Heights.
In Crown Heights.
Yes. So maybe part of the reason was like I feel like why I like this movie so much is it came out in 2020. Why I like this movie so much is the Chicago thing, and I think maybe just transposing that to New York, I just don't have a connection to it.
So many stories about that.
Yeah.
But like I think Divine Joy Randolph was really good in the one episode I watched. Like as the Jack Black character, giving it a very different spin. And Divine Joy Randolph went on to be a very important actor. And so it's like...
Yeah, she's sort of the Jack Black.
Jack Black's the Jack Black of right now. Jack Black's like the biggest star in the world. But I'm not against watching the movie. Or sorry, the show. But I just have no impulse to put it on. And I think I probably ended up watching a movie's worth of the show. I probably ended up watching 2 episodes and was like, that was pretty good. And then I just moved on. I didn't want to finish the story.
Yes.
I wasn't as intrigued by, and it also just has this look to it that I just...
TV shows did not look great at the time. Another issue is that, as we mentioned, Bruce Springsteen made a cameo in the movie. And it seems like their equivalent of Bruce Springsteen was potentially Jack Antonoff.
Oh my God.
Or Debbie Harry. They
Sorry to make that sound.
They just I guess maybe it's just a reflection of how music has changed. But like those are the types, like he's the type of musician that is in.
Although I am seeing Parker Posey makes a guest appearance, so I am back in.
Yeah.
And Kingsley Benadier and
it was interesting. I think my biggest problem with it was that from what I remember, a lot of Zoe Kravitz's dialogue and monologues from the show are pretty much adapted straight up from the movie.
Yeah.
So like, especially if you have just seen the movie, like she's just like kind of repeating what John Cusack was saying.
Right.
But like, they just don't really update the character enough. Where like, I think that like John Cusack, I think Rob Gordon is a specific type of shitty you are if you're like a white guy in the 2000s who owns a record store. And I don't think that type of shitty is exactly the same type of shitty you would be.
With that character.
Yeah.
I think she plays it a little bit more depressed.
Yeah, definitely.
And just like with like a whatever. And she ends up treating the people in her life poorly because of that. And we didn't watch the resolution because we didn't finish the show.
Yeah.
I think we should move on from this because this is not a show we know or saw. So we're making passing judgments at a pilot episode.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was thinking on the way over here, like a comparable show that I think, partially because of the kind of direct camera monologues, but like Fleabag at the time, and I think it's probably one of the reasons why High Fidelity got picked up as a TV show. Fleabag, I think that shows how you can make a
flawed female
character
lead. Yeah, I agree completely. I admire the swing of this thing, and I will give it my respect and time at some point in my life, I guess. Making that promise on mic? What the hell?
We're going to bring us back to you.
Jesus.
When we run out of Chicago movies and we start doing Crown Heights, Brooklyn movies, we can...
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to the movie.
Yes.
I want to give some more respect to Lily Taylor.
Yes.
She was very favorite
good
performer in the movie.
She's very good in it.
I am such a big fan of hers.
Chicago actor.
Yes. And I just really think that she has the energy that I wish the lead actress had. I wish the lead actress was less of like a mouthpiece for what the movie is trying to settle on. And I think Lily Taylor is just like a better performer. She's so good in this movie.
I mean, her character is so small, but she brings so much to it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why it's good to have like a Catherine Zeta-Jones and a Lily Taylor, like established actors, Tim Robbins,
Lisa Bonet.
Lisa Bonet. There's like certain people who it's like they have a small amount of screen time, Joan Cusack, and they're such good actors.
Yeah, that they can fill in whatever is missing from the script.
Right, and that they pop, and that you remember them. And I love that about those characters. Lily Taylor, especially, I just think like in her sort of the introduction to her, the way that they both or like both dealing with a breakup at the same time, energy. It's just so funny to me.
Yeah, and it's really funny when he goes through all his exes and tries to figure out if he did something wrong.
Yeah.
And when he gets to her, he realizes that her life is like way worse.
Way worse.
And that she actually wants him back. And he's like, oh.
Yeah. He's such a piece of shit to her. It's so interesting. So Lily Taylor, though, just to give a shout out, a DePaul grad, and she was born in Glencoe, northern suburb. Just cool. Just so cool. She's so good in Mystic Pizza. She's just like, she's had a whole career of giving more to roles that don't write to her strengths. But we will talk about her at some point in the future. She's in Public Enemies. So
she's in I feel like she's in some other stuff.
Chicago movies.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure she is. She'll come back up.
She's she plays the most depressing character on 6 Feet Under.
Mm-hmm.
But she always brings like a really great like kind of manic energy, except for the movie Addiction, which actually brings a pretty chill. Well, it's not a chill movie, but any other actors you want to kind of zoom in on? I mean, they're all great. I think everyone's really fun.
Yeah, I think that like the structure of the movie, the top 5 breakups, I really like the flow of them. I really like each of them. I think that the Catherine Zeta-Jones character is really well performed. We sort of talked about it with Keith a little bit, but I just think that recontextualizing the coolest person you know, and then understanding that they've become the thing that you hate, the yuppie thing that you hate, is so interesting. And him having like a revelation of that, like in the middle of a party, that's so funny. Yeah, I'm sort of less into the relationship between John Cusack and his ex, the first ex. You
mean the main
girl,
the main relationship in the movie that the movie stems on?
Yeah, I just think that hits a snag for me, where it's like simultaneously the least interesting written character and the least interesting performance. Not to knock this person who went on to voice a very important character in Zootopia, in the Danish version, but I do think like all the other actors pop so hard. It's like you hit on every single other person, and one of them ends up, the one who's the lead is I just don't think she's that, I don't know, compelling.
I think that's right, but I don't know. I guess there's a certain way that I think her not being that much of a character adds some authenticity to her role as this kind of like maturing catalyst for him.
It leads to, although like that subplot when she like goes away to the suburbs leads to the craziest part of the movie where he's like rolling around in the mud.
Yeah, and then they have sex in her car.
They have sex in her car. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's an extremely interesting scene.
Also, they never really go into you. Do you ever see her and Tom Robbins? That's his name? Tim Robbins? Tom Robbins.
Tim Robbins. It's Tim Robbins.
They both have this. Oh, Tim Robinson. Tim Robbins. I feel
Tom
like
Robinson.
You never see Tim Robbins and her interact. So that whole relationship feels very strange.
It's really interesting. I do think.
Oh, no, they do. You do. In his apartment.
Yeah.
In his apartment. But he's not really. I don't know. They don't.
That little fuck ass haircut he has.
It's really funny. He's really funny.
He's so funny in this.
The scene where he goes to the record store,
yep,
and it goes through all of like the things that John Cusack could do.
It's so funny.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Apparently they drop like a air conditioner on him, and in the movie.
Yeah.
And apparently they accidentally hit the cameraman when they were actually filming it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really funny. There was an on-set accident.
Yeah, there's a
stunt performers.
Yeah, we need more stunt performers to get hit by.
Thank you, Tom Cruise.
But yeah, he's a really funny character.
Yeah, I agree.
And what neighborhood is he supposed to live in? Because he
Gold Coast. Do they say it?
No, I don't think they do.
Oh.
I'm trying to think. I don't.
Yeah,
remember.
what neighborhood? Lincoln Park.
Maybe maybe I think it might be Bucktown. I think it's like Armitage near like the map room. Because there's the scene where John Cusack is on the phone
Yeah.
in front, like calling her from the payphone when
Right.
she sees him outside. But in the movie, he used to live in John Cusack's building.
Right.
Which I think is Rogers Park.
And it's more like evidence of like him, of like that type of person changing. And
Yeah. But it does look like a Rogers Park apartment.
it does.
And at some point I see, do you remember like in Rogers Park, I don't know if they're still around, but there's like a realtor named Twombly.
You recognize those signs?
Yeah.
That's really funny.
And do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Twombly Malente. It's John Twombly Malente Management. I've always seen the signs all over Rogers Park.
Love it.
It's a management company. Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
He's good.
You keep calling him Tom.
I know. I think it's because I don't want to call him Tim Robinson. So my brain is like, you have to like go all the way wrong. Like you have to go completely wrong so you don't call him Tim Robinson.
I want to point out a review of this movie by Jonathan Rosenbaum, J-Ro, where he says that the humor about the male neuroses doesn't try to remind you of Woody Allen at every turn. And the Chicago settings and atmosphere are made to seem relatively cutting edge for a change, rather than appropriate only for car chases, which I find extremely interesting that at the time in 2000, Chicago was viewed as like, oh, just like a setting to do like set pieces or chases or...
I mean, that makes sense because it was post-Fugitive and everyone wanted to fucking do that.
a loud, bombastic chase through something interesting. But instead it's an exploration of male id.
And I guess I have two thoughts. I do feel like this movie is really reminded me of Woody Allen.
It did?
You didn't think so?
No.
I feel like the whole structure is based on Annie Hall.
Mm.
But maybe that's just the Nick Hornby thing. But
Sure.
the whole I feel isn't that the structure of Annie Hall is he's reflecting on his relationship and it's like kind of like cross-cutting between the past and the present.
That makes sense. I can see that.
He just doesn't have all like he has sexual hang-ups, but they're not the same type of like twisted things that Woody Allen has.
No, yeah, it is. His whole thing is different in a way. There's there's a whole conversation that was had around this movie of whether this movie was feminist or not when it came out.
Yes, or I mean, I think people still struggle. I mean, at different times in my life, I've interpreted it in different ways. And I feel like as a teenager, like you mentioned, like as a teenager, you think like this is the coolest guy on the planet. Then after college, when I watched it, after the woke mind virus got me, I was like, this movie's kind of problematic. Like he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
And then now I'm watching it. It's like, yeah, he's supposed to be an asshole.
Yeah, that's the point. If he wasn't, it would be way worse.
Yeah, yeah. Like
of him exploring these ex relations. Like he's actually a piece of shit.
Yeah, and like the movie knows this.
Yeah.
And the movie's about him like attempting to grow out, like realizing that he's a piece of shit and attempting to grow out of that.
And I like that the movie doesn't punish him for it. Like it's not like a moral play.
No, because that wouldn't happen in real life.
No.
Most people who are assholes get to be assholes for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But
and they find people who love them for their little hang-ups and
yeah. But yeah, Stephen Frears in an interview with Cinest magazine. Cineast. He says, of course it's a feminist film. It's a cry for men to grow up.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, I don't know. I keep getting stuck on this idea that like we're all Rob Gordon now.
Sure. In culture.
Yeah. Just like culturally and like the way people interact with one another. And I like everything is me. Like people can only like think about things through Star Wars and themselves.
Yeah. Everyone is preparing their takes.
Yeah. And I do wonder if more people should watch this movie and think about
how that reflects them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we should play this movie more. This is kind of like a sanitizer.
Yeah.
It like sort of.
But also, I can see a lot of people either assuming that the movie's on his side or kind of thinking like
still adapting his.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to school at University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and I knew going there that I wanted to stay as far away from frat culture as possible, being one of the frat capitals of the Midwest. Of the United States. And so instead, I mean, Champaign-Urbana is divided very much so into Champaign frat side, Urbana house show side. Urbana was full of guys like Rob Gordon. I probably reflected a little bit of that side of, of Urbana. And I found those guys to be insufferable. The sort of star fuckers, the ones who sort of put together shows and sort of clout chasers. That sort of Rob Gordon Wicker Park effect thing that Liz Phair was talking about, like sort of became a lot of what I experienced and then pushed back against when I was like, I don't relate to either of these sides of masculinity. One being the sad boy, everything is everyone else's fault. Let me drink away those pains type guy, or the let me crush cans against my head.
Yeah, or the fuck boy. Yeah. Everything else is everyone else's fault.
Right.
Trying to drink away the pain. By crushing cans against your forehead.
Yeah.
Same side of the same coin. Or not same side. Different side. Two sides
of the same coin. And it's interesting that this is a movie about that.
Yes.
At a time when like the Brat Pack stuff was happening in Chicago, like Cusack sort of came up in that, right?
Yeah.
So like, not kind of, he did. And that was a whole sort of, I mean, Say Anything is another guy kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so this is a movie 10 years later, 11 years later, that is sort of exploring a similar sort of side. And Cusack is so good in this movie. We should say this.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so good.
He knows exactly what to do. I mean, part of it, I think, is because he had so much to do with like the production and the writing, but like he gets Rob Gordon a lot.
He gets it.
I'd be remiss not to mention this funny thing from Andrew Buss's top 5 that I keep mentioning. So Jack Black at the time was in Tenacious D, and they were doing a show in Chicago at the House of Blues around the filming of this movie, and there's a quote from the book that says, Tenacious D, him and Kyle played this gig where they had a monkey spunking all of the audience, spraying sperm all over the audience. It covers us all with this foam.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I was, when I was looking through my notes again, I was like, I need to figure out more of this. I found a video of this show on YouTube.
What?
With like very few views. It's a full like over hour long video of their 1999 House of Blues show. And at around the hour mark, a little bit before, like at around 57 minutes, they start doing this like long improv song about Spider-Man, where like Jack Black is just kind of like riffing on like the Spider-Man song for like a long time.
Yeah.
And there's like a guy on stage dressed as Spider-Man just like doing like little moves and stuff. And then at around an hour mark, there's another guy on stage with like a giant fake penis. And he starts like fake fucking Spider-Man.
What the hell?
And then he has an orgasm, and they like start spraying the audience with like this white foam.
That's a little random. That's just a little mind. That is one of the creative forces behind a movie like a Minecraft movie.
Yeah. It actually happens in a Minecraft movie.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I like that. I don't think I'd like to be at that show.
But I don't understand how whoever was remembering the show remembered it as a monkey spunking on the audience.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So yeah, I will include a clip to the YouTube video with a time mark if you want to look at that.
Absolutely.
But that's some of the fun stuff going on in the making of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to go over?
With the movie, no. I want to plug Joan Cusack's store, Judy Maxwell Home. Everyone should go get a tchotchke from Joan Cusack. It's over on Wells.
Is she supposed to be related to him in this movie?
I think, yeah, she's his sister.
I think, no, but like...
She plays his sister.
I don't think she does. I think she's just a friend.
Really?
Because they never mention like, oh, this is my sister. You just know, oh, that's his sister.
They look exactly the same.
Yeah, but I don't believe that.
Joan Cusack used to be my neighbor. Not like next door neighbor, but
around your...
Yeah, my neighbor.
She's just called Liz. I don't know if... She doesn't say Liz Gordon.
I just had always filled that in then. She's really good.
She's very good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think she's just like a friend of theirs.
So my overall thoughts about this movie, I just don't think it all works.
What do you mean?
Towards the end.
Oh, yeah.
I think sort of the wrap up stuff Even like the final performance scene, I just find like okay. But like the first half of the movie is so strong that it just sort of, I don't care. This is one of those movies that I just like, we'll just watch whenever it's on. It's a comfort.
I think I generally agree. I think every time I watch this movie, after they get back together, I'm kind of like, oh, it keeps going, like something else. I feel like most movies would like end on that kind of high note. I do think it's interesting that he gets tempted by a music critic, and it seems like, oh, is he just gonna be back to his old ways and leave his girlfriend for this music critic, and then he decides to ask her to marry him in one of the least romantic marriage proposals on film, which is where he's just like, I've been thinking, I'm tired of fantasizing, like let's just settle down and get married. Yeah. Which is exactly how everyone should propose to their partners.
Let's just do the thing.
Yeah. You know what? Like, we're old. What else are you gonna do? But without the last like 15 minutes, we wouldn't get that really great scene of Jack Black singing.
Sure.
What's he singing? Let's Get It On.
Yeah, that's true. I just find that the last 15 minutes a little bit extraneous. But then like the final shot of him is on that bridge, like talking straight to camera. There's so much direct address in this.
No, the final scene is just them like dancing, I think. Oh, no. It's him. He's going to make her a mixtape.
A mixtape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
you ever made someone a mixtape?
Yeah, in high school a lot.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is maybe even in college, but now it's just like, well, why would I make?
Just send a playlist.
Yeah, no one has a fucking CD player anymore. But I do feel like
I found my Walkman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Have you listened to it?
No.
You don't have any CDs.
I need to get some CDs.
I do feel like mixtapes are nicer just because of like the physicality of them.
Yeah.
And I think there's more because with the playlist you can just put on shuffle. I guess you can do that with a mixtape, but with the CD. But I don't know. There's a different. I think there's like an added element.
There's also an intentionality to curating, burning, giving it.
But even then, like at the time of this movie, I mean, I guess he could. He doesn't really use a computer. I think it's like there's very little online stuff, even though that was definitely a bigger part of the world at the time.
Yeah.
But I do think making a mixtape back then was a lot more difficult.
There's one more thing I also wanted to say. I was trying to fit this into the conversation with Keith, but then we kept moving on to just good points. Next to the music box is a pop-up video store.
Yes.
The Terror Vision pop-up, which most days is run by Will Morris, who is the exact opposite of a Rob Gordon figure, in my view. Just very welcoming. Will love to talk to you about any movies. Is just a wealth of knowledge. Knows everything about all the movies in there. So stop by there, and keep sort of physical media alive. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's it. What would you rate this movie?
Yeah, I think, this is just like such a, to take this movie out of the, so I would say that this movie is extremely Chicago. Like to take it out of the British milieu and to adapt it for Chicago, they would have to get a lot of things right. And the movie does, from the production design to the actors, to the locations. I just think this is a very Chicago movie. I don't think it sticks the landing completely, but overall, I'd probably give it around like 4 stars.
Like the 4 stars video heaven in Madison,
Wisconsin. It's like 4 stars video heaven.
Yeah.
And what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this movie, I think, because I watched it as a teenager, I've always held it in kind of high regard. And I think it utilizes Chicago very well. It really captures like the moment, and also it's just great to see parts of it that you don't normally see in movies. There's pretty much like there's like 2 or 3 shots of downtown, and like there's that one scene on the bridge where he's talking, where you can see it in the background. But it's kind of nice how much of it is just based on neighborhoods. Yeah. And I think it's really accurate. There's one inaccuracy, which is that he's on the purple line at some point, and then the next shot is it going into a tunnel, which
I blame Frears.
Yeah. It's British people. When he got to Chicago,
purple line goes into a tunnel.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
it does.
above ground.
And then it goes.
It's always above ground.
It's always above ground.
Pretty sure. Because it goes on the brown line track. It starts on the red line track and goes on
And
the
then it
brown.
goes to the brown.
Yeah.
You're right.
It wouldn't go into a tunnel.
It wouldn't go into a tunnel.
Stephen Frears, when he got to Chicago, he started driving on the wrong side of the freeway.
Is that an actual thing?
Yes.
I thought you were kidding.
Because he's British.
That's good.
That's really funny. So I think, other than that inaccuracy, I do think that this movie is a really good representation of the city, and I would probably give it 4 stars, just like the video store in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you notice it kind of like the flag too.
Whoa.
I know.
Like there's 50 stars on the flag. But
is there anything else going on in the city coming up that you're excited about?
I'm excited about Backdraft in August. That's
Yeah.
next.
Backdraft 70 millimeter at the Music Box. I'm excited for that.
That's in a long time.
Yeah, but first, like Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
It's gonna be amazing. The Siskel is doing a lot of Altman this summer, which I'm super excited about. I'm gonna try to catch 3 women. Top 5, more like top 3. We didn't talk at all about Chris Rock's movie Top 5.
Chris Rock. What is that?
Chris Rock made a movie in 2000. I want to say 10. That's very much so a Woody Allen riff.
Mm-hmm.
That is New York guy who's obsessed with hip hop. How everyone has a top 5.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and has a great DMX scene.
Well, someone who is based in New York should start a New York podcast
There's probably none of those.
called Streets of Garbage. A New York City film called
How Many Bridges?
Brooklyn Bridge. Oh, 29 Bridges. No,
Yeah,
what
what's
is
the name
it?
of that movie?
Fuck.
This is really exciting.
Oof, I don't remember. Movie
Bridges.
21 Bridges.
Yeah, they should do a 21 Bridges podcast.
I agree. Where they go through each bridge.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to 4 Stars, a Chicago film podcast. If you have any comments, complaints, fact checks, please email us at chicagopodfilmcast@gmail.com.
And then please rate, review, and subscribe, and follow us on social media,
Yes.
on Instagram, on Twitter.
Yes. And don't forget to
reflect on all your exes.
Yes. Don't forget to everyone send us your top 5 past exes.
That's good. Let's instead of that,
yeah.
give us your top 5 artists. Give your top 5. Respond.
Give us your top 5 artists that were introduced to you by an ex of yours.
That's good. That's a good prompt.
Yes. And thanks for listening.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.
Doors closing.